비전을 이끌어오신 스티븐뉴전트 박사님을 소개해드리게 되어 정말로 기쁩니다. 깊은 동굴 속에서 울려나온 듯한 목소리의 주인공인 뉴전트 박사님은 50년 가까이 영양과학과 자연의학 분야를 연구해온 세계적인 과학자이자 교육자입니다. 또한 메나테크의 치프 사이언스 앤 헬스 오피서로서 글리칸을 단순한 성분이 아닌 건강한 노화를 가능케 하는 과학, 달리 말해 건강 수명 기간을 확장하는 핵심 기술로 정립해오는 분입니다. 이제 글리칸의 선지자이자 메나테크 과학의 살아있는 역사, 스티븐뉴전트 박사님의 강의를 들으시겠습니다.
Hello, my friends. I wish I could be with you in person for this event, but, well, I just couldn't be with my travel schedule. So I made a video for you to deliver the important messages that you need to know about the company's direction and our product, and really some pretty exciting new data about Korea specifically. And this really goes under the heading of health and longevity, but I like to call it health span versus lifespan. So I'm going to share some slides with you, and we will get started. Okay, health span versus lifespan. It's a slightly different concept than people are used to, I suppose. We've talked about healthy aging and longevity, but never quite like this before. So I'm going to give you in this talk the facts about lifespan versus health span. That is, how long do you remain healthy during your lifespan? And we'll talk about that gap of time in between. Facts specifically about aging in South Korea. In fact, South Korea may be the most important market for this message in the entire world. And we will conclude it with what I call the hero product, and that's Ambritos, of course. So, longevity and the health gap, it's a global problem. It's not just a problem in Korea, it's a problem in every country. But the statistics in Korea are far more compelling than they are in virtually every other country I've investigated. We're not going to be talking about a product for the elderly because aging begins at conception. So this is a problem for everybody on the planet, and you're going to be surprised with some of this information. For instance, you may be surprised to know that how your life is going to be after the age of 70 in terms of your overall health actually is starting in your 20s. You're beginning to determine those paths for you when you're in your 20s. And we're going to be talking a lot about glycan replenishment, daily glycan replenishment. You will know at the end of this presentation that there are compelling reasons why everyone on planet Earth, everybody, should be using glycans every single day. This is really good information, folks. You're going to like this. Well, this is a chart that's mostly from the World Health Organization, but for you, I've also taken the statistics from the Korean government, which are slightly different. The Korean government stats are newer, they're more accurate, but certainly the fact that they're newer is important as well. So according to the Korean government, the health gap between how long you should be healthy, which for the average Korean is going to be 69.9 years of age, until the time when, according to the Korean government, your life will end at 83.7 years of age. That health gap of 13.8 years, the health gap is the time that you have very significant health problems where you're not feeling like you're living your best life because, well, you're simply not. So that's important. And you should also know that Korea comes in number 2 in health gap. The UK is the worst, but the fact that you make number 2 is very significant, and we're going to talk more about that information as we proceed. Right now, globally, 373,000 people are turning 40 years of age every single day, 7 days a week. That's a lot of people. And in fact, the fastest growing group of people are people over the age of 65. You may know that across the planet, birth rates are going down in almost every country, and life spans are increasing. Health spans are not increasing. In fact, in your country, health spans are actually decreasing as the lifespan is increasing. And that means you've got a bigger and bigger gap, and this gap is getting worse every year, according to the latest statistics. You have a bigger and bigger gap between when you stop being healthy and you're having chronic problems every day until you finally pass. Here's another way to look at this statistically. Right now, there are just a little over 3 billion people who are at the 40-ish mark. But by 2050, that's going to be nearly 5 billion people. You're going to see why 40 is important. But really, again, I want everybody to start doing the right thing at the age of 20. Still, we'll follow the statistics where they take us. So I've laid this out for you specifically, and you see the Korean, Japanese, and Thai statistics. These are the number of people turning 40 every day in your countries. Combined, it's nearly 8,000 people a day, but in South Korea, close to 2,000 people a day. That's a lot of people making that shift. Now, I've experienced this as I've traveled. I've been traveling the globe now for, well, some 48 years, and I have lectured in 48 countries. And I have met all kinds of cultures, and I've interacted with all manner of religions and different genetic groups. And the pattern for human beings is always the same. People in their 20s and 30s, I don't need dietary supplements, I feel pretty good, or maybe I'm invincible, I feel so good. But when they get around their 40s, they start to feel some aspects of aging. Perhaps their eyesight has declined. Maybe they're having more trouble recovering from a lot of exercise or physical activity. They get sore easier. Maybe they're a bit slower. All manner of things begin to happen in your 40s, and by your 50s, now the symptoms become so pronounced. And folks, this is countries all over the world, not just Korea, but so pronounced that doctors' visits increase significantly. And after 60, the chronic health problems really become obvious. Now, according to Stanford Medical School, Stanford says the perfect time to start doing something about aging is around the age of 50 or in your 50s decade. And I disagree. The cellular data that's available, it really is telling us that things start to decline in your 20s, and that's where you should be proactive. And if you're not in your 20s as you listen to this, all the more reason for you to be proactive right now and have the longest possible health span, not just lifespan. You can change how you age. You can't change your age, of course, but you can change how you age, and that's important. Already around the age of 25, there's already some decline in your body's ability to manufacture collagen and elastin. Now, as far as I know, of the 48 countries that I've lectured in, I have not seen any country that is more beauty conscious than Korea. Beauty is so important in Korea, and you have so many beautiful people in your country. But knowing how important beauty is, and you see, every time I come to your country and I see all these beautiful girls are in their 20s, just gorgeous. They're models, they're stars of various types. They're on commercials that show beauty and youth. Well, they're already losing collagen and elastin, and they don't even know it yet. So you need to get started early. This is important. And very often, and I would say most often, when I talk about aging, and well, there are things that you should do to help you with aging, the first thing I get from so many people is, oh, well, that's all about genetics. Well, guess what? It isn't all about genetics. That's what the studies are showing us right now. The studies are telling us that environment is more important than genetics in terms of aging. When I say environment, I'm not just talking about the air you breathe and, the kind of plants that you're around and so on. When I say environment, I need your psychological environment. Now, that means what kind of stress are you under and how do you deal with stress? Because that accelerates aging. What sort of food do you eat? Do you take sufficient supplements to get all the right nutrition that you need to fight the aging process? So many factors involved in environment, far more important than genetics in terms of aging. Well, of course, your hormones start to decline. DHA, DHEA is your probably most important overall hormone as it relates to aging. And that particular hormone begins to decline literally at the rate of about 2% per year, starting around the age of 25. So all those beautiful young people that you're seeing on TV and they look so great, they're already declining. They don't even know it yet. So it's important to think about this early, be proactive. So estrogen, testosterone, all the hormones begin to decline at fairly early ages. Now, generally, we're looking at the, say, 45 to 55 bracket for most hormones, and then it keeps getting worse after that. Muscle loss. Oh boy, is this significant. And people don't think about it often until it's too late. Muscle loss starts around the age of 30-ish, and you lose about 3 to 8% per decade after that. By the time you're 80, you may have lost as much as 50% of your muscle mass. When they talk about people not being able to get around very well, they can't walk very well, they may lose their balance, they may fall more frequently. That, more than anything, is about muscle mass. Muscle mass requires a lot of protein, and the more we age, the older we get, the more protein we require, not less, more. It's a big problem, and that needs to be addressed. And most people don't start thinking about it until it's, well, kind of too late for some people. So, how much protein do you need? Well, minimum of 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram body weight. That's a lot. Don't sell yourself short with this and think, oh, I ate enough protein today. I suggest that you look up the protein contents of whatever you're eating at your meals and find out how much protein you're actually eating. And then when you see that you're not eating enough, and you almost certainly are not eating enough, then you need to add protein to your diet as well. This is a big deal. It's very, very important. So as we age, we have all manner of dysfunction, stem cell exhaustion, hormone decline, muscle loss, as I talked about, mitochondrial dysfunction, something called inflammaging, which I will talk more about in a moment, and glycan decline. Yes, the very thing that Manatech is about, glycans. There is a documented decline in glycan levels in human beings as we age. You're going to find this very important in a few moments. Because people say to you, how do I know I need glycans? How do I know that I need glycans every day? Well, the science is clear. You do need glycans, and you do need them every day. So this lecture is going to get more important as we go forward. Healthcare costs are strongly related to aging. And as we age, healthcare costs per person go up. Somebody's got to pay for that. Taxes pay for all of the countries that provide so-called free healthcare. It's not free. It's paid for by tax dollars. Now, think about helping your country as well, helping yourself, helping the people you love, and helping your country. Because a country that has too many people that are not healthy, they are not productive. And that's bad for the entire nation. That's bad for the nation's economy. That's bad for your nation's security. It's an important thing to think about. In fact, you might even want to think about talking to some of your politicians about glycans and just how important they are. Well, wait till I give you all the information first, of course. But we will be talking during this presentation about daily glycan replenishment. Very important. And it's part of our new direction at Manatech. Diet reality. That you always have somebody who says, oh, well, I eat a great diet, and if I eat right, I won't need any supplements, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm sorry, one study after another is showing us the same thing, that people are not getting sufficient nutrients from the modern diet. And years ago, I wrote a book in 2004 where I said, you're not what you eat, you're what you digest and absorb. Now keep that thought in mind, because another thing that declines as you age is your ability to produce digestive enzymes. That's a big deal. In fact, by the age of 40, the average person may have declined in their ability to produce digestive enzymes somewhere between 25 and 40%, with an average decline per decade of about 10 to 13 more percent per decade. Do the math. This is why when people get to be 60 and 70, they're having so much muscle loss because they can't digest their protein. And if you eat perfect food, but you can't digest it properly, then it just creates expensive stool. Pardon me for that example, but that's the truth. That's what it does. So that's not optimal for sure. And in fact, if diet was providing everything, then why would 145 different countries create federal laws that mandate that certain nutrients are put into food, whether people know it or not? 145 of our approximately 200 countries on this planet, it's a law, and it's still not enough. So diet, I'm afraid, my friends, is not enough. I want you to eat a great diet. Of course I do. And you know what? One of the best diets for glycans in the entire world is the traditional South Korean diet. It really is. But it's still not enough because of the decline. So let's talk a little bit about the science of glycan replenishment. And I want you to think of it as daily glycan replenishment. Inflammaging is a word that was invented by an Italian scientist back in 2000. And this scientist was studying aging, and he was studying all the aspects of aging and found that everybody who's aging has inflammation, which is not related to disease. He said this is, quote, sterile inflammation because it's not related to disease. And he coined the word inflammaging. So inflammaging is the word I'm going to be using as I'm talking about inflammation in your body as you age. Inflammation does accelerate the aging process as well. So it's important that all the nutrients you need in your body for inflammaging, to fight inflammaging, that you have those nutrients in adequate quantities. Inflammaging is measurable by blood tests. And we now know that we can test glycans. And we're the glycan company, folks. We can test glycans on something called immunoglobulin G, or IgG. That's the most important antibody in your entire body. It is the most important antibody with the greatest, broadest level of functions for all of your immune health. Very, very important. And that we now know, according to the most recent scientific study, tracking glycans on IgG, or glycosylation of IgG, is a more accurate way to determine aging than even the length of telomeres. And telomeres is what we've been doing for a very long time now as the goal. By the way, we are currently doing some investigation. It's an investigation. I don't want anybody to jump 2 steps ahead of me and get excited or hear this wrong. We are investigating the possibility of creating a test kit for you and everyone you meet to find out what their glycan age is versus their birthday. So that'll be pretty exciting. If we can get that done, that'll be pretty exciting. It's going to take some time, okay? So don't get excited and think this is coming out next week, because that's not happening. Good science takes time, and we're making sure that we do this right. Now, the landmark study on IgG glycosylation and inflammaging and matching your glycan age versus your birthday, which, by the way, can vary according to the study of 5,117 human beings. According to that study, that number can vary as much as 15 years plus or minus. And they also tell us that the majority of this is about glycans. In fact, 58% of the variance, they tell us, is about glycans. Are you getting excited yet? Are you seeing the vision already before I've even finished this talk about how important this is for all of us? And for those of you who are business builders, how important this is for your business? Are you seeing this already? There's more. I have much more for you. Looking at right now is a graph that shows the natural decline. This is documented in human blood studies. And this is the decline that occurs in your glycan levels in your blood as you age. Now, I want you to notice as you go off to one side of the chart and you see that around the age of 20 is when it starts to decline. That's what I've been saying to you so far in this talk. And that decline gets pretty steep as you're getting down towards the 45 to 50 area, as I mentioned. By the time you get down to 80, well, it's pretty bad. So understanding how fast Korea is becoming what's called a super-aged population. You, in fact, qualify technically as a super-aged population. That means you have to have at least 20% or more of your population being over the age of 65, as you currently do. Now, as you look at this graph, what you're seeing is the inflammaging. You see, in your body, you have good glycans and bad glycans. You've never heard me talk about bad glycans before because there was never an opportunity for it, but there is now. So the bad glycans are the ones that cause the inflammaging. Now look at this graph and you watch this going, starting again at about the age of 20 and going up As you see on this graph, it goes up to 80, but it's quite significant, very significant. All right, so what happens when we cross these? You take these two graphs, you put them together, and what you see is a crossover zone somewhere between the ages of 45 and 55, and these are critical zones for you. What we know, based on current science, is that by adding glycans orally, and what company's better equipped to do that than we are, by adding them, we can actually improve the biomarkers of aging very significantly. And we're doing further investigation on that. I'll show you a little bit that we've done so far. So that we have, using glycans that are glycosylated onto IgG, we have a better indicator for aging than telomeres, much more accurate. And as I mentioned before, 58% of the variance, because you could be as much as 15 years older in your glycan age or 15 years younger in your glycan age. Well, you want that younger one, right? And the variance is 58% due to your glycan levels. Some of you have to be getting pretty excited right now, I hope, because this information is just amazing. And this slide just verifies what I've just said. So we're thinking then about daily glycan replenishment. That's so important for all of you. Well, this is a different study, and I want you to take a look here. You see person A on the chart. They have a poor lifestyle, and they're not taking glycan supplements at all. Well, that person is the worst off in terms of biological aging. Person B, well, this person has an average lifestyle, and they're not taking glycans, so their biological age and their glycan age are the same, in this case, 50. Now understand, when you go back to that unhealthy lifestyle, person A, that biological age is in the 60s, their glycan age, I should say, in the 60s. But let's look at person C from this study. Now this person, healthy lifestyle and glycans taken daily for that glycan decline. And look at the change that we have here. We've got a change of approximately 9 years improvement. Biomarkers of aging improving by approximately 9 years. That's phenomenal. That's amazing. And that's something that you can do, and you can get others to do as well. All right, let's look at something I think even more exciting. And that is a study that we did at Manatech back in 2011. Now, I want to be clear for you. This study was not done for the purpose of seeing if we could change the biomarkers of aging. It wasn't the purpose of the study at all. The purpose of the study was to confirm that ambrotose could do something called N-glycosylation. The study showed that it definitely does work. That was proven, and that's why one of our claims that we make with ambrotose is that it helps you with cellular communication and immune support. Very important. So the Alavi study was dose dependent. This is important because what it showed us is that the doses of glycans that you take into your body does matter. And so let's take a look at this chart. Okay, so here we have, this is from Alavi's chart, okay, and here we have the pro-inflammaging factors in red and the protective glycan factors in a sort of aqua or teal color, and then the most protective factors in the dark green. Now look what happens when we go from low dose to medium dose to high dose. What you see is that those negative factors the red bars are going down significantly. This proved to the scientists doing this test, not only does ambritos, but what it showed is that taking more ambritos lowers those factors and improves the factors that are known to decrease those biomarkers of aging. To know is that the current scientific testing that shows the biomarkers of aging, we know what they are, and we know that ambrotose lowers those biomarkers or gives you a younger biomarker, if we want to look at it that way. I have to make sure that with translation this is covered. But the data showed us this anyway. If we were to do a study specifically about aging, I can't even imagine how exciting that might be for all of us. Anyway, this is pretty exciting as it is. Okay, so then we want to make sure that we are supporting IgG glycosylation, and we know that ambrotose does that. No problem. We want to replenish our glycans every day because they are constantly in decline. That means everybody, starting at the age of 20, really should be taking glycans or ambrotose every single day of their life. Not just if they don't feel good, not just if they're older, but starting at age 20, every single day of their life. That's what should be happening. So the case for daily glycan replenishment in Korea, after I looked at the statistics for all the countries that I'm lecturing in this month, Korea had the strongest statistics, the ones that were most compelling to tell the argument about daily glycan replenishment. So let's go back. This is a different way to look at that bar chart I showed you earlier. 83.7 years is the average life expectancy in Korea. 69.9 years is your health expectancy. So then the gap, 13.8 years. That's a pretty big gap. That means almost 14 years of your life of not feeling good, probably having multiple health issues, probably being on lots of pharmaceuticals just to make it to 83.7 years of age. And this is even stronger for you folks. Your government, looking at their latest statistics, for the first time in 70 years, down adjusted that figure. In other words, showing that this is getting worse in your country. Not better, but worse. Now, I was told that in Korea you have something called the dream of 9988. Okay, we'll talk about that. I would like you to achieve that dream. In fact, I'd like you to go further than that, but we'll talk a little more detail about that in a moment. This bar chart, by the way, is simply a different way for you to look at your gap. So this doesn't show the spans, but rather the gap in each country. You can see that UK has the biggest gap between the end of their lifespan and the end of their health span. It's much bigger than yours. But in Korea, 13.8 years is the second worst in the world, and another reason that everyone in Korea needs to be taking ambrotose every day. So the figures by your government for the first time in 70 years have been down adjusted by 3.4 years. That's not good. Now, this is interesting. Another statistic that I found very interesting about Korea is that the average female in Korea has an extraordinary lifespan of 86.6. So in every country, we're seeing that women outlive men in almost every instance. But what's not good is although she's living longer, she's also sick longer. She also has a bigger gap. Her gap isn't 13.8 years, her gap's 15 years of not feeling good. Now, folks, this isn't just about the individual. This is about the people who take care of the individuals. Think about that for a moment. So right now, 19.7% of Korean adults have more than one chronic health condition at the same time. And 84.5% of all medical expenses in Korea are because of chronic health conditions. 10.84 million Koreans are now above the age of 65. That's why you are now a super aged society. This presentation, this direction, our company's new direction is perfect for South Korea. Absolutely perfect. And by the year 2050, we'll be looking at 39 or more percent of Koreans being over the age of 65. Now, here's the thing you need to think about. When someone is elderly, they frequently need someone to help them, to take care of them, perhaps live with them and be a caregiver. Now, right now, you have a pretty significant span between the number of people, so it's average of 4, number of people who are working and paying taxes versus the number of people who need help and need to be taken care of. But by 2050, that number is going to drop from 4 people down to 1.3. Now that means that the tax base to pay for all of the healthcare needs is going to be dropping. And that means the people who are left have to pay more and more and more taxes. But for the individual, what's important is the fact that there's not going to be enough people, younger people, to take care of the older people at some point. It is so important that we start helping people with the biomarkers of aging as early as possible. We need to extend that health span as long as possible, and we need to close that gap of unhealthy years as much as possible. Really, really important. Now, I want you to know that Korea has really accelerated into the super aging status. It took France 115 years to become super aged. It only took South Korea 17 years. So your population is aging much faster than the average. All the more reason for us to be thinking about the aging process and doing the right thing. And folks, the science is here. The scientific evidence is strong. We know you need it. And we've got the best glycan product on the entire planet. Somebody needs to be excited about that. I sure am. Let's take a look at the dream, the 9988 dream. Well, the idea, as I was told by a Korean recently, is that you want to live until 99 and die at 100. Personally, I'd rather die older than 100, but let's say that's what it is. Full cognitive function into your 90s. Physical independence, so you don't need someone to help you and wheel you around and take care of you. No years in a nursing care center or a hospital. Family time, travel, enjoy your golden years, enjoy your retirement, have purpose in your life until that last day. Now, none of us are born with an expiration date stamped on our bottom. We don't know when we're going to go, but we know we will at some point. I want you to be healthy, my friends. I want you to be so healthy, not just until the end of the current health span of approximately 69 years, but all the way out. I want you to be healthy until the last day. Because right now, it's not looking that way. Instead of 9988, it's a lot more like 7088. That's the way this now. Here's another important factor for those of you who are business builders, or those of you who've been sort of thinking about it. What we know statistically is that people with more money, and that's what these bar charts are showing you, people with more money have longer health spans. Not necessarily longer lifespans, but longer health spans. So they're healthier longer, less chronic conditions and unhealthy conditions. So it's important to have as much money as you can have. And I'll bet some of you know ways to earn more too, don't you? Of course you do. Now this looks at the South Korean market. Your market is pretty darn close to perfect right now for what we're talking about. Look at the numbers here. Huge numbers. Your market size, the market trajectory. You are just poised to be climbing at an incredible rate of people who want dietary supplements. People who are buying them right now, and that number is going to keep going up. And you see right there, 2030, 7 billion US dollar equivalent. That's enormous, just enormous amount of money. So let's talk then about glycans a little bit more. What are they and what do they do? Well, a glycan in scientific terms, and folks, those of you who, and all of Manitech said glyconutrient from the beginning until I finally convinced everyone to follow the science and do the word glycan versus glyconutrient. So our company now uses the correct scientific term, which is glycan. Glyconutrient is a marketing term. It's not a real thing. It doesn't exist in science. It's a commercial term. So what is a glycan then? A glycan is any sugar or assembly of sugar, so any single sugar or assembly of sugars in free form or attached to other molecules. That is a glycan. And all of ambertose is just chock full of glycans. We'll talk more about that. So you can also say sugars, you could say saccharides, you could say glycans. Don't say glyconutrients anymore, please. We want to say glycans. Okay. And when someone says to you, when you say sugar, and they go, oh my gosh, it's sugar. That's bad for you. That's bad for your blood sugar. That makes you gain weight. No, it's not that kind of sugar. How do we know? Because Manitech is the science company. We did a human, double-blind, placebo-controlled test to find out if people using ambrotose had their blood sugar go up. And guess what? None of them did. So we know that our glycans are different than the sugar that people put into their food and drink. What do they do for you? Well, we know they support the immune system. They support your hormonal system as well. Now, they don't make hormones, but they do the signaling to tell your glands how to make hormones, when to make hormones, and they also help you with insulin sensitivity, so that's very important. They support structure in your body as well, like cartilage and connective tissue, and that beautiful, healthy skin that I see so many beautiful Koreans having all the time. And gut health, oh my gosh, so important for gut health. By the way, I'm going to deviate just a little bit and give you this information because I think this is exciting. In 2022, the Nobel Prize for Chemistry, which probably none of you read about, because almost nobody in the world read about, but the Nobel Prize in Chemistry was given to some scientists who did something extraordinary. Now, what these scientists were trying to do is they were trying to find a way to take a chemotherapy drug and deliver it to a target cell without any collateral damage in the patient receiving the chemo. Now, most of you know that chemo is very toxic. It's very harsh on the body. So one of these scientists is very keen on glycans. She is, Dr. Bertossi is her name, and she knows a great deal about glycans. It's not her field of science, by the way. She's in a different field. But she realized that cellular communication is accomplished with glycans. So she thought, what if we took the chemotherapy drug and tagged it with a glycan? And then we tagged the target cell with a different glycan. Would the chemotherapy drug go directly to that target cell without harming the patient? Guess what happened? It worked. Now, they're doing human studies right now. Those human studies may have to go on for another, who knows, 10, 15 years. I don't know. So I don't know when this will become a reality, but the fact is it only worked because of glycans. So important. And glycans make us who we are. Your blood type is decided by glycans. Those little rectangles that you see under fatty acid on each of the blood types. So you're looking at A and B and so on. All right. So you're looking at these different blood types, and what you're seeing there then are glycans. Different glycans attached to the what's called a sphingosine and fatty acid. That's the same on everybody's blood. When you attach specific glycans, that's what changes it from type A to type B to type O and so on. Okay. So your blood type's determined by it. And in fact, glycans are the foundation of every health program if you're smart. What we know right now is that from the United States National Academy of Science, a study that was done for about 5 years, they studied all kinds of things about glycans, and their conclusion was there's no function in the human body that does not involve glycans. Are you with the most important company in the world? Boy, I sure think you are. Here's some of the things that they do. Now, I know that you know about cellular communication. We've been talking about that since 1996. But what about immune regulation and pathogen recognition and hormone binding and protein folding and cellular adhesion and enzyme activity and inflammatories? Oh, it just goes on. And there's so many factors. It's much more than cellular communication. Now, we know that you need 8 for cellular communication. We've been talking about that at Manatech literally since 1995-96. So we know we need 8. That was confirmed in 1996 without any question. And we also know from scientific study that the modern human diet typically provides 2 in more than adequate levels to everybody. So you needed 8, you're getting 2 in diet, so now you need 6. And we also know from scientific study that there's a third glycan that you need for cell-to-cell communication, which is reliably made by the body. Well, that then leaves you with 5 that you have to have. So you have to have a minimum of 5 that gets into your body either by diet or dietary supplement. But ambertose is much more than 5. It's much more than 8. In fact, it's 10. It has always been 10. I know some of you are thinking, oh my gosh, you can't say that because we were taught it was 8. Folks, I'm the chief science officer at Manatech, and I've been at Manatech from the very beginning. It's 10 now. It was 10 then. It's always been 10. And that's good. It's a bonus. And because of all these different functions. Now, I want you to see, and many of you have seen this teaching aid before, you have all these little spirals that are coming up out of the cells, and those are called receptor sites. And you see on the ends of them, there are lots of little beads. Each of these beads represents a specific glycan bound to a protein. So then that's called a glycoprotein. These then create the cellular communication, the signal that tells your body if you've been invaded by something that shouldn't be there, if something needs to be destroyed, or if something needs to be repaired, or some cell needs to be nourished. All of these signals are happening because of that. This, however, is the way it actually looks. Now, they used blue dye on this using an electron microscope to show you what it really looks on the surface of the cell. Now, wait till I hit you with these numbers, because the next time somebody says to you, I'm not sure if I need to take my Ambertose or if I need to keep taking my Ambertose because I feel great. Pay attention. Every cell of the human body, and there are more than 30 trillion of your cells, needs a minimum of 20 million glycans on the surface of each of those 32 trillion cells. And some cells need as many as 200 million glycans on their surface, depending on the complexity of the cellular function. The more complex it is, the more glycans it needs. Do you hear what I'm saying here? Nearly, when you actually take the full numbers of cells in the human body, that's 32.7 trillion, nearly 33 trillion times a potentially 200 million, that's going to break your calculator. That's a huge number. That's an enormous number. And people say, well, I'm not sure if I need, do I need 2 scoops of Ambertose? Remember the study I showed you from Alavi, who showed that the more you take, the better results you get. That's been proven. So that you should be taking them daily, but I'll give you another reason as to why. This shows the lifespan of different cells in the human body. I want you to just look at the first line, just the top line. Those are immune cells. Some of them live as little as 10 hours. Some of them may live as much as 3 days, but understand that when they die and they have to get replaced, by the way, they can't get replaced without glycan signals telling the immune system to replace them. But in order to get replaced, they have to have now at least 20 million, and some of them as many as 200 million glycans that have to go into the body, find the cell, and glycosylate the surface of that cell. And these cells are dying and being replaced every nanosecond of your life. Think about it. Think about the math. It could just break your calculator thinking about it. We are the company, in fact, we are the only company on the entire planet that can say that they pioneered a new field of science. That science, nutritional glycobiology. Not glycobiology, nutritional glycobiology. That is the field of the application of glycans as nutrients for your health, not just the general study of the biology of the glycans. Who knows more about glycans than we do? Well, nobody. In our industry, nobody. That's a pretty exciting idea as well. Our Ambertose products are third-party tested. We have 12 studies on Ambertose as a finished product. Most of our competitors, what they do is they'll get an ingredient that's been scientifically studied. They'll take that one ingredient and they'll put it into their powder, their capsule, whatever. And then they'll say, we have science. There's a study about an ingredient in one of our products. Well, that's nice. But we don't know what their product does unless their product has been studied. We've done 12 studies on Ambertose. We know what it does. Our competitors can't say that. And we've done third-party clinical testing, so that it's not just us saying it. Other scientists say it as well. Manitech has spent tens of millions of US dollars on research and equipment and scientific studies. Scientific study is very expensive, very, very expensive. And that's why almost no companies in our industry do any studies on their own finished products because it's too expensive. And they figure if they do clever marketing, they'll get you to buy the product even though they've not validated their own products. It's just clever marketing. Nobody has spent as much money on science and research as Manitech has. Not in our industry, nobody. We are the leaders. We've been in business more than 32 years. That's extraordinary for a nutrition company. We have earned 155 patents so far. That's astounding for a company in our industry. And we're doing business in 43 countries. We are amazing as a company. And what's the hero product? Well, it's Ambritos, of course. The most important product on planet Earth, as far as I'm concerned, for so many reasons. Our product, even if there was no patents, we are still the first and only product that was made specifically for cellular communication from 100% plant-based material. We have 25 years of peer review on our on our product, Ambritos. Nobody else can claim that. Manitech is unique in being able to claim that. We're not just a supplement company. We are the glycan company. There's simply no question about it. And what do we know from these studies? Cellular communication, of course. Going back to the simple, we need 8 glycans for cellular communication, of course. But we are so much more than that. And by the way, I guess it's important to say that without cellular communication, really nothing could work anyway. But we know that we're more than cellular communication. We have 7 brain studies. 7! I know of companies who sell brain products that don't have 7 brain studies. In fact, there's some that sell brain products that don't have 1 brain study, which it's kind of tragic, I guess, for them. Anyway, we have 7 brain studies. We know that Ambritos improves cognitive function. We know it improves memory function, concentration, attentiveness, mood, irritability. Now think of that. Think about the aging population. Do you need those factors for an aging population? Yes, you do. They're extremely important for an aging population. And, of course, what most people come to Manitech for, immune support. Well, we've got it. We've proven it in human scientific study. And digestive support. I don't know of any company that has deliberately tried to match the ingredients in their products with probiotics to find the best match. We've done that. In our studies, we've actually done research to find out which glycans best match which probiotics. And then we adjusted our product, GI Pro Balance, accordingly. A lot of people don't know that. We have earned, as I've mentioned, more than 155 patents to date and more than 50 patents on Ambritos to date. Now, I don't want you to get too hung up on patents because patents expire over time. I want you to be focused on all of the other. I've given you so much information in this talk, so much to be excited about, so much to leave today from this talk and say, oh my gosh, I have everything I need to say about why you need Manitech, why you need Ambritos. It's amazing stuff. Why do you need daily glycan replenishment? And what's the best product for it? Ambritos, of course. Ambritos is a Manitech exclusive. And by the way, no single glycan product is going to do what Ambritos can do for glycan replenishment therapy or glycan replenishment on a daily basis. Nobody can do that besides Ambrose. And if you see somebody's whipped up some mushroom blends and things, folks, I can tell you that cannot touch what you need to do. There's just not enough glycan there to get that job done. Ambrose is king, absolutely the king of daily glycan replenishment. So you should be doing that every day. Folks, the science is well established. The need is real. The technology is available. You've got Ambrose right there at your fingertips. You've got the answer. You know what to do. And there's an old saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. So yes, everybody should have started on Ambrose when they were 20, but they can start on it today. That's the second best time to do it, today. Ambrose, the hero product. I hope you got a lot out of this, folks. I hope I've given you a lot of truly exciting information to leave today and just be all fired up about Manitech and about Ambrose with our new direction for health span versus lifespan. Okay, well, I have been given some questions, and let me see if I can get to this. I'm going to have to read these from my notes because these are questions that were given to me from some presidential directors. And we're going to start with a question from Presidential Director, and please forgive me if I don't pronounce names correctly. I'm an American, okay, but I'll do the best I can. So the first presidential director who wrote in a question is Myung-Ju Kim. And the question is, could you share what products you are currently taking and how do you typically take them in your daily routine, and what are the benefits you've experienced? Okay, first part of the answer. I take Ambrose, of course. Everyone just knows that, right? Everybody knows how much I love Ambrose. So yes, I take Ambrose. And I take Catalyst, and I take our antioxidant product, Ambrose AO, omega-3, and GI Pro Balance. And how do I take them? Well, I take most of them, except for the GI Pro Balance, I may vary with, but the others I take at breakfast and typically at dinner. And sometimes I take the GI Pro Balance in the morning, sometimes in the evening. There's no statistically strong evidence that it's definitely better in the morning or the evening. It's really about my travel schedule. And it's especially, I mean, those of you who've done any international travel, if you're traveling and you know you're going not just between countries, you're going between day zones, like it's a different day when you land than the day you left, even though your body thinks it's the same day, if you know what I'm talking about. So sometimes that part gets a little bit messed up. As far as benefits, well, as the chief science officer of the company, I really can't, I'm not permitted to give a personal health testimonial. I just can't do that. So let me say it this way. I've tested more than 6,000 products in my career. I've formulated 163 products in my career. And I have 48 years experience in nutrition science. I know something about nutrition. You could probably say that, right? If these products were not giving me benefits on a daily basis, I would not be taking them. But I'm really not permitted to give you a testimonial on my specific issues and what benefits I've received. I hope that you're okay with that and that's acceptable to you. Okay, the second question that we have here is from a bronze presidential and a silver presidential. I see both. again, forgive me if I mispronounce, but I believe this is Soon Mi Wong, is the bronze presidential, and the silver presidential is Ju Young No. And again, I hope I got that correct. And the question begins with, could you provide an update on any recent patents or clinical research related to these products or their ingredients? Okay, I can give you some of that. In terms of research, we do have a study going on at this moment. There's a rule in the US. I don't know if the rule is the same in Korea or not, but in the US, if you talk about your research before it's gone through peer review for publishing, then very often they'll refuse to publish it. They don't want any discussion about it. So I can't really tell you what the study is about, but I can tell you that we have a study going on right now. It's an ambrotose study. I could give you that much. And that's about all I can tell you on that. As far as our patents go, I mentioned a few minutes ago that we have earned a total of 155 patents so far. And folks, do some research on your own on this. 155 patents on finished product. That's astounding in our industry. Absolutely astounding. It's amazing. When you, I'll do ambrotose complex as an example. When that product was first submitted for patent, that was back in 1995, it had to go to the U.S. Patent Office Division of Carbohydrate Technologies. And a scientist who was a specialist in glycobiology had to look at our patent and then decide if our science was valid before he would issue the patent. Well, of course, he did issue the patent. We've gotten more than 50 patents on ambrotose in all kinds of countries around the world. So the fact that we've earned 155 says a lot about Manitech, about our science, about how great we are as a company, but especially as a science-based company. That's pretty phenomenal. Now, in Korea, there are 6 current patents. And I think I mentioned a moment ago that I don't want people to get too hung up on patents, because you shouldn't get hung up on things that you can't control. And as many of you know, that before joining Manitech as a member of the science team, that I decided that if I was going to be able to teach Manitech associates effectively, I had to become a Manitech associate. I had to know what it was like to be an associate. What kind of problems do you have? What are your needs? What sort of obstacles do you have? I needed to know these things in order to help you more effectively. So I became an associate, and I finally achieved, in fact, it was in a little bit over a year, that I achieved a level known as Platinum Presidential. Listen, if an old healthcare practitioner can do it, all of you can do it. All of you can become platinum, okay? But I learned a lot of things about business building then. And one of the things I learned about is to not, another expression we have in the United States, and maybe the same in Korea, don't put your eggs all in one basket. So don't get hung up on patents. Are patents good? Absolutely, they're good. They prove a lot. And the fact that we've earned 155 is, as I say, astounding and amazing. But patents expire in 20 years. That's out of your control. Don't get focused in your business building on things you can't control. Focus on things you can control. That will help you build your business more effectively. So, important to mention about the patents, but don't dwell on them, okay? And, we still have worldwide, I think we have 50 active patents worldwide right now on various products in different countries. So let me see what else we have here in terms of questions. Take care of that. So we have a question from we have a question from a platinum presidential, from a one-star platinum presidential, Jae Young Bae. And again, I hope I've pronounced that correctly. The question is, we have been educated that ambertose provides 8 glyconutrients. Could you clarify how each ingredient in ambertose relates to or contributes to these glyconutrients? Well, once again, I would like to ask that you try and condition yourself to say glycan versus glyconutrient. And I think that's important going forward. I did make a couple of slides, and I don't know if those slides are going to appear on the screen. First of all, this slide shows how many glycans are in ambertose. So it's not 8, it's 10, and you're looking at 10 right there, and it's always been 10, okay? So do we have cell-to-cell communication covered? Yes, of course we do, all right? But we have much more than that. So that's extremely important, but we have much more. So there's 10. And let me see if, okay, this is showing us the number of, and why is that last slide important about the 10 glycans? Because we've done so much more than cellular communication. So that is simply showing the number of things that we've validated through our 12 studies. There's going to be more, of course, but 12. So I hope that I understand your question correctly. So I made this slide to answer this the way I think you're asking me the question. So what you're seeing here, as an example, you see that Manopol, which is ace mannan from aloe vera interleaf gel, that provides us with mannose. It also provides us with other glycans, not just mannose, okay? Gum tragacanth provides us with galacturonic acid. So anyways, you look down the list, what you're seeing here is you see the 10 glycans and you see the sources of those glycans. What ingredients do they come from is the way I think I'm being. See what the next part is. Here's another part to the question. And this is the main component of Manopol is ace mannan. Could you explain whether ace mannan directly provides mannose as a monosaccharide, or if it is metabolized and broken down into mannose during digestion and absorption in the body? If I was a comedian, I would say yes, because actually it works both ways. And by the way, excellent question. Very good question. A very thoughtful question. So, and I appreciate that. So basically, ace mannan is a very long chain molecule, and it has other glycans attached to it. Maybe you would think of it perhaps like a string of beads. Okay, so each of the beads on the string would be mannose, and there's lots of mannose along the string, not just one, but there's lots of them. Then attached to them are other glycans, and those are called acetylated groups. I don't want to get too complicated with this, but each of the acetylated groups are different glycans, so that you actually have multiple glycans in Manopol. It's not a mannose product only. It's not just mannose. So it has mannose and other glycans, as you can see from the chart that you're looking at right now. So some of these molecules then are commonly and are available early, and some of them as mannose, and some of them are going into the gastrointestinal tract. They're interacting with probiotic bacteria, particular probiotic bacteria. They are then producing something called butyric acid, extremely important for the health of your gut, enormously important for the health of your gut. And as they break down, their byproducts that they break down into, they are then passing through very, very, very tiny openings in the cell walls of your intestines and then entering the bloodstream. So it is actually both. It's a really good question. It's a very, very thoughtful question, I think. That's it. I think that's it from the questions. So we have, I hope, a presentation that has given you just a ton of material to really do a great job out there, especially in Korea, where you're now a super aged society and you're getting worse at a more rapid rate than almost any society on the planet. Boy, do we need to be talking about health span versus lifespan in Korea. We need it bad. You know what to do. I've given you the evidence. The studies are out there, and you have the product. So I hope all of this has been good for you. I wish I could have been with you, but I look forward to coming back to Korea as early as I possibly can. So, health span versus lifespan. Take your Ambrotose and make sure everyone else does every day. Daily glycan replenishment. Thank you, folks.